Some men seem invisible by the time they hit 60, and others, with just one glance, can make a young woman think about them for hours. Which one do you want to be? The truth is, experience alone isn't enough. If you don't understand the invisible rules that drive youthful desire, you'll end up being seen as a kind old man, but powerless. Even worse, you'll start confusing pity for interest, politeness for desire, and simple courtesy for respect. Today, I'm going to show you the 7 mistakes a mature man can't afford to make if he wants to spark genuine interest in a younger woman. And fair warning, the last one is the fastest way to destroy everything you might have built. I'm Celia, and if you're here, it's because you haven't given up yet. Stay with me, because this video could change forever the way you look and the way you're looked at. Do you really think you can win over a young woman by acting like you're her age? Do you think what attracts her is your ability to use emojis or dance on TikTok? If you're over 60 and still trying to fit into a mold that was never meant for you, then you've already lost the game before it even started, because you're denying the one thing that truly makes you attractive, your difference. This is the first point of the video, and we're going to talk straight about a mistake many make without realizing it, trying to impress her with artificial youth. When a mature man tries to pass as young, he's not being seductive, he's being pathetic. That backward cap, that tight t-shirt, that forced slang, those 20-something jokes nobody gets. They don't spark desire, they spark pity. Because a young woman doesn't want a copycat. If she wanted someone her age, she'd already be with one. What might actually fascinate her about an older man isn't his ability to dance reggaeton, it's his presence, his calm, his difference, his real experience, his ability to say little and say it with his whole body. Think of it this way. A wolf doesn't need to meow to be liked by cats. He just needs to be himself. Steady, composed, with that gaze that's seen life and needs no approval. But if instead of showing your strength, you choose to disguise it as youth, you're only achieving one thing. You look insecure. And insecurity, when it comes from an older man, isn't just disappointing, it's alarming. Because if you don't know who you are at this age, how are you going to inspire someone who's still figuring out who she is? Not long ago, I spoke with a 31-year-old woman who had gone on a few dates with a 65-year-old man. She said, "At first I was drawn to the way he looked at me, his voice, his presence. But when he started mimicking my tastes, sending me stickers, telling me he was young at heart, something broke." Do you know what broke? The tension, the mystery, the admiration. Because instead of her trying to enter his world, he tried to sneak into hers. And for a woman with real desire, that has no value. The problem isn't age. The problem is denying what age has given you. Because if you're over 60 and don't know how to use your gaze, your stillness, your experience, your style, then you're wasting the most powerful weapon a man can have, authenticity. That ability to show up as you are, without asking for permission, without copying anyone, without lowering yourself to please. A young woman can be drawn to that, but she'll never give in to a blurry reflection of herself. So ask yourself this: do you want her to like you for who you pretend to be, or for who you really are? Because if you still need a costume to conquer, what you'll attract isn't desire, it's confusion. And once she sees the truth behind that youthful mask, it'll already be too late. If the first mistake is denying your maturity to fit into her world, the second is using that same maturity as a pedestal from which you look down on her. Many men, without realizing it, shift from imitating to imposing. And what could have been a bond built on admiration turns into a misunderstood power game. We've reached the second key point of this video: confusing experience with superiority. In practical psychology, this is called false authority, that impulse to validate your ideas simply because you've been alive longer. But time alone doesn't grant wisdom. It gives you experiences. And the difference lies in how you interpret them. A wise man doesn't need to prove he knows more. He doesn't need to correct every opinion. He doesn't feel the urge to have the last word. He knows when to speak, and when to stay silent to hear what's left unsaid. Because that's where true power is born, in the ability to hold a conversation without crushing the other person. When you talk to a young woman like you're her guide, her teacher, her savior, you're poisoning the relationship from the start. You're telling her, without saying it, that she has nothing to teach you, that you've seen it all, that your path is the right one, that her perspective is still too green. And do you know what effect that has on her? The same as a book that's already been read 1,000 times. She loses interest. Because a young woman isn't looking for a man to educate her. She wants someone who challenges her, who listens without judgment, who makes her think and feel, without smothering her with speeches. Stoicism teaches that the virtue of the wise man lies not in appearing wise, but in acting with composure. A man who respects himself doesn't need to say he knows. He shows it in his presence, in how he stays calm, in how he handles silence, in how he leaves room for her to speak too, because when you impose your experience as an absolute truth, you're shutting down the exchange. You're saying, I'm right, you're here to learn. And that doesn't inspire desire. That drives it away. And here's the trap. Many older men believe being interesting means being the center of the conversation, filling it with stories, with lessons, with polished phrases. But they don't realize that the most seductive thing they can offer is the opposite. The ability to hold space, to understand, to create an atmosphere where she feels free to express herself without being judged. Because if there's no emotional space, there's no connection. And without connection, there's no real desire. Just an unbalanced relationship that sooner or later collapses. So think carefully. Are you sharing your experience as a gift or as a flag you wave? Because if every conversation turns into a lecture, a correction, an endless explanation, you're not winning her over. You're preaching, and no one desires their preacher. They desire the one who sees them, hears them, and, even with all his experience, still knows how to be surprised. Because it's in that shared, judgment-free space that a young woman might begin to admire you. And without admiration, everything else fades into the background. So far, we've seen how denying yourself or trying to impose yourself both push you away from genuine desire. But there's a third mistake, much quieter, that kills attraction from within. It's that almost invisible gesture that reveals your lack of confidence, even when you think you're acting with it. This brings us to the third point in the video, constantly seeking validation. It doesn't matter how many grey hairs you have or how many stories you've lived. If every gesture you make, every word you say, is fishing for a positive reaction from her, she'll sense it. And when a woman senses that a man needs approval, she stops respecting him, because she no longer sees someone grounded. She sees someone asking for permission to exist. It doesn't matter if you do it with compliments, gifts, or jokes disguised as questions. If she feels you're waiting for her applause, her attention, her "I like you," then you stop being a man and become a boy hoping for a pat on the head. Here's where a practical strategy comes in. Act from affirmation, not from need. What does that mean? It means that everything you do, from the way you look at her to the way you speak, should come from your own decision, not from a hidden need to be accepted. If you give her a compliment, let it be because you want to say it, not because you're hoping she'll return one. If you invite her for coffee, let it be because you genuinely enjoy her company, not because you think it'll win her over. When you stop asking for validation and start acting from conscious choice, everything shifts. Your energy changes, and she feels it. I remember a powerful moment between a 60-year-old man and a woman just over 30. He was elegant, calm, intriguing. She was curious and open. Everything was going well, until he, in the middle of their conversation, asked with a nervous smile, "Don't you think I'm a bit too old for you?" In that instant, something in her closed off. It wasn't the question itself. It was what it revealed. The doubt, the insecurity, the need for her to say, "No, of course not, I'm really into you." But that answer never came, because what he needed wasn't a response. What he needed was to know beforehand that his worth doesn't depend on age or her approval, that if he's there, it's because he has something to offer, not something to beg for. Acting from affirmation means entering the moment with the certainty that you don't need to convince anyone. You just show up. And if she connects, great. If not, that's fine too. Because a man who validates himself doesn't compete, doesn't beg, doesn't shrink himself to please. And that serenity, that unshakable calm, is deeply attractive to a woman who's already seen too much anxiety dressed up as charm. Before we go on, if any of this is resonating with you, if something you've heard has shifted your perspective, subscribe to the channel and hit like. I'd love to know what country you're watching from. And if you've ever found yourself seeking a young woman's approval without realizing it, comment with these 3 words: not anymore. There are still truths ahead that can change the way you connect with them, and I promise you, the last one will restore the respect you forgot you deserved. If the previous mistake stems from the fear of not being liked, the one we're about to explore comes from something deeper, the fear of never being loved again. And if you don't confront that fear, it softens you, makes you predictable, emotionally exposed. Because when a man feels like his chances are running out, he starts talking too much and revealing more than he should. We've reached the 4th point in this video, revealing your fears too soon. This happens more often than you'd think. A young woman asks a simple question like, "What do you usually do on weekends?" And suddenly you're telling her about your loneliness, your kids who don't call anymore, your ex who left you for someone younger, all the times you felt abandoned. You think you're creating a connection, but what you're really creating is a burden. Because she's not your therapist, she's not there to console you, she's there to feel something different, something powerful, something that breaks the emotional monotony of her world. And if you show up as just another broken man looking for affection, then the tension, the admiration, the desire, it all vanishes. All that's left is sympathy, and sympathy doesn't spark anything. In emotional psychology, this is called premature investment. It's when you open up your inner world too early, hoping that it will lead to intimacy. But intimacy isn't built on confessions. It's built on presence, on mystery, on small revelations that she earns, not ones you hand over. Because when you unload your entire story at the start, without her asking for it, you're unknowingly shouting, "I'm afraid you won't choose me unless I tell you everything right now." And that fear doesn't pull her in, it pushes her away, because no desire can survive on someone else's emotional urgency. The most destructive part of this mistake is that it disguises itself as something noble. You think you're being honest. That opening up makes you real. That showing your wounds makes you deep. But the truth is this: if you do it too soon, you come off as weak. Not vulnerable in a good way, but in a way that doesn't inspire respect. Because you're not sharing your soul from a place of calm, you're doing it from a place of need. And when a woman smells need, her admiration dies quietly. The consequence is devastating. You start building a relationship where she holds the emotional power, where you depend on her attention, her tenderness, her words. And when that happens, you're no longer the man who leads. You become the one who waits. And in an age gap relationship, that's the beginning of the end. Because if she senses you're looking for comfort, she'll treat you like a relative, a good man, but never the man she desires or feels drawn to. So what's the alternative? Be selective with what you share. Don't fake strength, show it in how you choose what to say and what to keep for later. Don't lie about your wounds, but don't lay them all out like a desperate hand either. A young woman can admire your scars, but only if you show them with dignity, not sadness. Only if you share them once there's a real foundation, not while you're still just getting to know each other. Because respect is built through balance, not through emotional dumping. And if you don't master that balance, she'll take control for you. But not as a lover, more like a spectator. And you're not here to be watched. You're here to stir desire, to inspire respect, to show up as a man who's lived, but who doesn't need anyone to rescue him. Because the man who needs saving already lost control before he even began. We've reached the 5th point in this video, and here things get more raw, because now we're not talking about a mistake disguised as a virtue, but a trap willingly chosen. a self-deception that many men accept, knowing deep down it turns them into someone they never wanted to be. Today we're talking about using money as bait. When an older man convinces himself that his wallet is the only thing he has to offer, he's no longer seducing, he's buying attention. And the most painful part? He knows it. He knows it every time he pays for dinner expecting something in return. He knows it when he gives without being asked. When he offers stability like it's a product on sale. He knows it, but doesn't say it. And that's where dependency begins. Because if you need to pay for her to stay, you'll never know if she's there for you, or for what you can provide. This pattern is more common than you'd think. And the worst part is that many men justify it with lines like, "At this age, you've got to make things easier," or "I can afford it, so why not?" But the problem isn't giving. The problem is the place you're giving from. If you do it from genuine desire, without expecting anything in return, that's fine. But if you're doing it hoping to generate attraction, then you're using your money as a mask, because deep down you feel you're not enough without it. And it shows. Because a young woman who takes without admiring you isn't getting closer. She's collecting leverage. And one day, when she feels she no longer needs anything from you, she'll walk away without a second thought. Can this be reversed? Yes, but it's not easy. Because first, you have to break the idea that your value lies in what you give, and start building the certainty that who you are, your presence, your composure, your emotional depth, is already enough. You have to dare to offer fewer things, and more moments, less control, and more mystery. You have to stop thinking she needs comfort to stay, and start showing her that what you offer has no price, the calm of a man who doesn't compete, who doesn't beg, who can't be bought or sold. But for that, you need a different mindset, one that understands respect can't be purchased, that if a young woman only sticks around for the gifts, the trips, the fancy dinners, then she's not with you, she's with your wallet. And that's the loneliest kind of relationship, because you're there, but your essence doesn't matter. She's with you, but she doesn't see you, she consumes you, but she never chooses you. The real solution isn't to stop giving, it's to learn how to give from desire, not strategy. To show up exactly as you are, even if that means some women will walk away. Because the respect that matters isn't the one she has for what you own, it's the one you have for who you are. And if you don't respect yourself, she won't do it for you. Because no gift, no lavish plan, no favor can replace the presence of a man who knows he's valuable, even when he gives nothing. Because he already is everything. If we just talked about the mistake of using money as bait, now we're diving into something even more subtle, but just as destructive. Because you can stop paying for dinners, stop giving gifts, stop promising stability, but if you don't shift your internal energy, you'll keep falling into the same pattern with a different disguise. The sixth point in this video is ignoring her real need for admiration. And believe me, this is one of the most lethal mistakes an older man can make with a younger woman. Picture this. You're sitting across from her. She's looking at you, listening, even laughing. And you think everything's going great. But inside her, something starts to dim. Because she doesn't feel inspired by you. She doesn't feel like you're holding the moment. She doesn't feel there's anything to admire. And when a woman doesn't admire, she doesn't desire. She might stick around for a while, sure, out of politeness, habit, or curiosity, but she won't give herself. She won't light up. She won't surrender. And you, even if you don't say it out loud, can feel it. You feel it when she stops reaching out, when she stays closed off, when she responds but doesn't really connect. And you start wondering what's wrong, but you don't realize what's missing is presence. A young woman doesn't fall for an older man out of pity. She falls when he behaves like someone who has nothing left to prove, someone who doesn't doubt himself, who doesn't explain himself, who doesn't apologize for his age or his gray hair or his silences. She wants to look at you and feel something she can't find in men her age: clarity, decisiveness, emotional control. That feeling that you're not there to ask for anything, but to share something with her that no one else can offer. The calm of a man who doesn't flinch. But if instead of holding that energy, You become soft, overly accommodating, polite, emotionally submissive. She senses it as a loss of strength, and no one desires weakness. No one is drawn to what's predictable. No one surrenders to what they can control. That's why, when you ignore her deep need to admire the man in front of her, you start digging your own emotional grave. Because she might enjoy your company, appreciate your kindness, but she won't desire you. She won't open up, because her instinct doesn't respond to logic. It responds to the power it perceives. And if you don't give her that, she'll go looking for it elsewhere. Maybe not physically at first, but emotionally, absolutely. She'll start pulling away. She'll stop looking for you. She'll start seeing you as an option, not a choice. And when that happens, the connection breaks without warning. One day, she's just not there anymore. Or maybe she is, but not really. Because you didn't step into the role her desire was hoping for. The man who respects himself so deeply, he doesn't need to be understood to be desired. He just needs to be witnessed, to be admired. So if you're at that point where she's present but not fully, where she listens but doesn't open up, where she replies but doesn't pursue, look at yourself. Ask yourself if you're behaving like someone who inspires admiration, or like someone just seeking approval. Because approval is nice, but admiration is magnetic, and in real seduction that changes everything. If you've understood by now that without admiration there is no desire, then you've already taken a big step. But there's still one more. One that doesn't show in what you say, but in how you behave when a connection starts to form. We've reached the 7th point in this video, rushing into emotional closeness before building tension. And this mistake doesn't just kill desire, it kills your dignity. Tension is what keeps the game alive. It's what makes a woman think about you, imagine you, watch you quietly when she thinks you're not looking. It's the pause between what she feels and what you choose to reveal. Without tension, everything goes flat. And in love and desire, flat is just another word for dead. The problem is, many older men, as soon as they feel even the slightest bit of attention from a woman, start speeding things up. They open up, they pour their hearts out, they express feelings, they make promises, and all of it happens before she's felt anything real. Because you want to love, but she doesn't yet desire. And without desire first, love becomes a burden. This happens because of unresolved emotional urgency. Because you've been taught that love must be won quickly, that chances slip away, that if you don't speak up, you'll lose her. But what you don't realize is that a young woman doesn't want a man who rushes in. She wants a man who stands still under her gaze and doesn't flinch. One who knows the effect he has, but doesn't need immediate confirmation. Who lets himself be discovered slowly. Who doesn't throw around empty phrases or premature affection, but offers silences that carry weight, looks that burn, presence that holds. When you rush the emotional connection, what you're really doing is trying to tie down something that hasn't even taken shape. It's like asking a flower to bloom before you've watered it. And if she senses that you've already given yourself away too soon, she won't feel special, she'll feel responsible. Because now she has your attention, your affection, your emotional need, and she never asked for any of it. And do you know what a young woman does when she feels emotionally burdened by a man she barely knows? She pulls away, not out of cruelty, but instinct, because she knows that's not desire, it's dependency. What you need is a deeper transformation, a shift in how you show up in every moment. It's not about acting cold, it's about acting with composure, letting tension grow, holding back just enough, creating space, suggesting, not declaring. Because when you do that, she doesn't just desire you, she respects you. And that respect is the foundation of everything else. Physical, emotional, whatever may come, if you know how to set the pace. So take an honest look at yourself. Ask yourself if what you do when you meet a young woman is truly showing yourself or handing yourself over. Because if you give yourself too early, you're not building anything. You're giving away what should be earned. And what costs nothing is worth nothing. The change is up to you, not her, not your age, not fate, just you. And if you don't change anything, don't be surprised when respect leaves before desire ever arrives, because that's how raw the game is, and that's exactly how clearly you need to play it. If you've made it to the end of this video, it's not out of curiosity. It's because you know there's something in the way you relate to younger women that needs to change. And I'm not talking about emotional makeup, nice words, or seduction tricks. I'm talking about something deeper. The way you stand in the world, how you carry your age with strength, how you look without asking, how you offer without begging. Because after 60, there's no room to move from lack, only from truth. And here's the truth: if you don't wake up, if you don't cut the patterns that drain your power at the root, you'll keep being ignored, used, or replaced. And you weren't born for that. Those who listened all the way through are part of a minority that no longer wants comfort, but clarity. Because few have the emotional strength to face their reality and say, yes, this is happening to me, and yes, I want to change. So if you're one of them, I invite you to leave this simple phrase in the comments: I act with wisdom. Write it along with the country you're watching from, because it's time to stop giving your value away, to understand that your presence isn't an offer, it's a choice. I'm Celia, and this is House of Wisdom. This channel exists for men like you, men who've lived too much to keep acting like beginners, men who know that desire, respect, and dignity aren't memories. They're daily decisions. Here you won't find motivational quotes or empty promises, just truth. And if that truth shakes you, it's because you need it. Subscribe. Be part of this community of awakened men who've decided to reclaim the power that life, women, or even they themselves let slip away. And if you know someone making these same mistakes without realizing it, share this video. Because sometimes, one well-spoken truth is all it takes to wake up. And don't go just yet. The conversation doesn't end here. Watch the 2 videos that will pop up on the screen. Pick the one that makes you the most uncomfortable. Because right there, in that discomfort, is where your real transformation begins.